All right, so that kicks off today's administrative committee meeting. It is Monday, November 9th, and I am joined by Councilors Art Betke and Maureen Laughlin. As always, our first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from October 26th, 2020.
Look good to me.
Look good to me.
Same, excellent. So that takes us to item number 2, and for that we'll be joined by Deputy City Supervisor Bill Belknap for the Transportation Commission proposed amendment to Chapter 11, Title 3 of Moscow City Code.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'll bring up my presentation here for you. Hold on one sec, let me try that again. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yep.
So as introduced, this is a recommendation from the Transportation Commission for some amendments to Chapter 11 of Title 3 of Moscow City Code. And if I can get, there you go. Just to provide a little bit of background, this really kind of started late last year carried over into this spring. The Transportation Commission was conducting a review of Chapter 11 of Title 3 to understand the charge and membership of the Commission and look and see if there were any modifications that they would like to recommend to the City Council. Following that review, the Commission identified several elements they felt should be updated to reflect more current conditions and situations as it exists within the city. Those specific amendments included organization. So there were some thoughts of changing the membership or the structure of the organization. They also identified a number of ex-officio membership items they thought should be updated, and then the staff liaison also currently references 2 positions that don't exist currently within the city. So we have incorporated those proposed amendments in a draft ordinance for the council's review, and I'll provide you kind of a walkthrough, a little more detail on what those entail. So starting off with organization, and this kind of ties into what we'll see here in a minute with the ex-officio, but there was previously, currently there's a position on the commission as an ex-officio member that is a representative of the University of Idaho to be appointed by the president of the university. The commission felt the university was such an important partner as it relates to community transportation needs that they felt that that position should be elevated to a voting position on the commission. However, they understood that should the university not choose to appoint a representative to hold that position, they did not want to hold that slot empty. So they wanted to provide flexibility to allow the mayor to appoint a general community member to fill that position should the university choose not to nominate a representative. So within the organization section of the ordinance, there's new language inserted that states that one position of the commission shall be designated for a representative of the University of Idaho as designated by the president of the university. If the university chooses not to appoint a representative, the mayor may appoint a member to fill that position on the commission. So that's the first change. Also within the section related to organization, and this was kind of somewhat unique for the Transportation Commission as well, but it specifically stated that the Public Works Director and the Community Development Director would be the staff liaisons to the commission. I don't think really in any other city commission sections within Title III that we specifically identify who the staff liaison is. Oftentimes those assignments can change over time, but certainly those 2 positions no longer exist with the city, so they are recommending removal of that section, striking that section within the ordinance. The largest component of this change really is winnowing down the ex-officio membership list. And this is also something that is somewhat unique to the Transportation Commission, that there's a very long list of ex-officio members. So those are non-voting members of the commission reserved for a wide variety of individuals that may be related to transportation issues. And so they are recommending the removal of a large number of those ex-officio positions. Sometimes those are organizations that no longer exist. Other times it's because these individuals or organizations have been listed as ex-officio members but have not attended a meeting in a decade or participated in any of the commission's activities. So the current list is fairly long. And again, as I mentioned, this is somewhat unique for the Transportation Commission, but it includes the chair of the Moscow Tree Committee, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the executive director of the Disability Action Center, the district engineer of the Idaho Transportation Department, District Number 2, the Latah County Planner, the chair of the North Latah Highway District, the chair of the Moscow Planning and Zoning Commission, the superintendent of the school district, the president of the university, the Region 2 PTAC Advisory Council member, chair of the local Public Transportation Advisory Commission, a representative from the local railroad service provider, the manager of the Moscow Pullman Regional Airport, and then again, we have our high school student also listed there. So it's a very long list. I'm sure at the time that it was being crafted, the goal was for it to be very interdisciplinary and inclusive of all transportation-related interests, but we really have had very little interaction. I mean, the only ex-officio members who have attended regularly have included a representative from the Idaho Transportation Department. We have had generally a staff member from the University of Idaho serving on the commission. So Brian Johnson currently serves on the commission, but that's probably been about it for attendance on the ex-officio list. So the recommendation from the commission would be to remove the Tree Commission Chair, the Chamber of Commerce, the Executive Director of the Disability Action Center, County Planner, Highway District, Planning Zoning Commission Chair, Superintendent of the School District, the President of the University of Idaho, and again, they are recommending that there be a voting position on the commission held for a representative of the University of Idaho. So it's actually kind of elevating that position. The Region 2 PTAC Advisory Council member, the chair of the local Public Transportation Advisory Commission, which we no longer have. We no longer have rail service within the community as well, so they recommend removal of that, as well as the manager of the Moscow Pullman Regional Airport. So that leaves us with 4 ex-officio positions remaining. That would be the Idaho Transportation Department, District 2, District Engineer, the local public transit provider. So we're changing the PTAC Advisory Commission member and the Public Transportation Advisory Commission to a representative of Smart Transit as the local public transit provider. We would still have our student position for our post-secondary as well as our high school position, both as ex-officio members of the commission. So that's really the content of the proposed changes. If the committee concurs with those proposed changes, staff would then recommend the committee advance the draft ordinance to the full council for consideration. And I'll stop sharing and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I have one question, and that is concern about the Disability Action Center. I guess my sense is, isn't there a whole attempt to try and make sure that the transportation system accommodates the needs of disabled persons? And so if we can't get the executive director, can they just send somebody to them?
Well, they're always welcome to, so the question is, the meetings are always open. They're very informal, and we'd welcome anybody to attend and participate in the meeting, but they don't necessarily have to have an ex-officio position on the commission to do that. And so we really would prefer not to hold an ex-officio position for something that may happen on an occasional basis, as they have interest. Certainly we would welcome participation of anybody who has any interest in transportation, mobility, and access within the community. I don't know that we've just seen enough interest to warrant holding an ex-officio position on the commission solely for that purpose.
Is there somebody else besides the Disability Action Center? Is there any other organization in Moscow? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, not as an advocate for mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Grace, looking at this, the history of the Transportation Commission, did it start around a certain project? Just looking at how specific the code was?
Not that I'm aware of on a specific project. And I have to go back. I have given presentations to the commission in the past. We've kind of looked at the different iterations of the code. And I want to say we started off, there was a separate bicycle advisory committee and a separate transportation commission. Those were then merged into a single transportation commission. But I don't know that it was focused on any specific project to my knowledge.
I was wondering because I know, like pathways came out of a task force, that kind of thing.
Right.
Thank you. Art, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had 2 of them. One was with the elimination of the staff representative. I assume there's still ways of getting a staff liaison, just not necessarily community development director or something like that. Is that still within?
Oh, yeah. I still currently serve as a staff liaison to the commission. It's just that we don't have to specify who the liaison is in the code. So it could be at some point in time that's Mike Ray as the planning manager, or it could be that it's Scott Bontrager as city engineer. We may make transitions over time. So rather than codifying that and maybe having to amend the code every time you wanted to change representatives, it was somewhat of a unique feature in this chapter that actually named the staff liaison individual. In all of our other commissions, we do not specifically name who is liaison, although they all have individuals that are assigned to serve that purpose.
And the other question was that on your slide deck, you indicated that under Ex-Officio that local public transit provider would be left in there, but in the body of the ordinance itself that we were provided, it just says local transit provider and leaves out public.
I'm sorry, I clicked.
So that'd be under the section on Ex-Officio membership.
Sure. Yeah, I'm familiar with this section. We can certainly add public if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that would make it better, because otherwise local transit provider could mean anything from taxis to, if you stretched it, hotel shuttle buses.
Horse carriages.
So I think public makes it more clear who we want on there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say taxis are public, but that's certainly we could make sure that we modify that to capture who we intend to have participate. We didn't want to necessarily specifically name SMART, should they rebrand or change their name at some point in the future, but we can certainly add public to that descriptor.
Yeah, I think it'd be better. You had it in the slide deck, it just didn't make it into the language in the ordinance itself.
Unless anyone has anything else, my question, do we need to make code amendments go to the full council, or can they be on consent?
An ordinance probably should be considered on the regular agenda.
Okay, great. And so does everyone, with that slight adjustment, including public, does everyone feel good forwarding this with a recommendation?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so that brings us to our third and final item, and we have Fire Chief Brian Nickerson with us to present mutual aid agreement with Idaho Department of Lands.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great afternoon on a Monday to see everybody. Basically, what this agreement does, we haven't had one with them since I've been here. And what this does, it allows for some cooperation, further cooperation with Idaho Department of Lands. And basically allows us an opportunity, should the need arise, to collect for reimbursements for deploying our apparatus or our people. We haven't done that in the past. We did, however, as the example indicates in the short paragraph there, in September we were asked for an invoice for the fire down in Orofino, which between myself, a city engine, a truck from Potlatch, Troy, went to Orofino, and I provided invoices to them for that, and we were actually reimbursed for that. We're not paying anybody out of that at this point in time. However, this does allow us to broaden that horizon. So if we do get deployed outside of our general response area, and they do have the opportunity to for us to get reimbursement, then we just go through the process to do that, which is basically an invoice and so forth. So what this mutual aid agreement does is just solidifies that we can be called to go to Orofino again, or maybe up north to Coeur d'Alene, if the need should arise. Keep in mind, though, that this is not a requirement. What they would do is they would call and ask, like, hey, can you provide an engine for this or staff for this? And it's up to the discretion if we're available or not. This deployment could be anywhere from a few hours to a couple days. Just don't know. But it's based on our availability. If we see that we're running a lot of calls here locally, then we're probably not going to send our folks out to Coeur d'Alene or wherever. So it's kind of a judgment thing. We do the same thing with the rural fire district as well. But this allows the city also to utilize the city engine, just like we did this last fall, and it worked out really, really well. So I would encourage to move forward with approving the mutual aid agreement and with IDL, and I'd stand for any questions.
So am I understanding correctly that reimbursement isn't automatic from the language that's included in the contract?
It's not automatic. It's basically if they have a state fire, if you will, it's considered a state fire. It has to be elevated to a certain level for it to be for funds to be provided by the state through Idaho Department of Lands. So the document comes from the Idaho chiefs, and we have basically what's called a book, if you will, for reimbursement, and it provides that schedule, and that's what we go by to be reimbursed for that. The entire state uses the same one. So it gets in a little bit tricky whenever you get to paid people. Some people are making $35 an hour or $20 an hour, or whatever, but then there's others that are volunteers. But down the road, we can address that issue in the near future. But there are ways to reimburse for the apparatus only, which we did in September.
Great, thank you for that explanation.
So this would allow you to go in and seek reimbursement for your volunteers?
There's a possibility down the road. We would have to establish, and I've talked to Gary a little bit about it, that we talk about it down the road, is we would just have to establish a pay scale for them. So that way when somebody calls and says, hey, can you send somebody tomorrow morning at 8? But what's it going to cost me? Well, we can already have that calculated to say that, okay, based on you want them for 2 days, this is the cost with the engine and the people, and this is the estimate. So that's kind of how that estimate works with volunteers, if you will. We can pay them. It's just we have to work it out internally with the volunteers as well as the city to make that happen down the road.
You would have control over who went and specifically who went and how many went.
Who went, qualifications, all those type of things. That's correct. Yep.
And is the average person who is a volunteer firefighter for the city qualified to work at a really large fire going on in Orofino or someplace else?
Yeah, because we did structure protection, which basically protects a home. So basically, we sat on a couple houses throughout the entire night, just to make sure it wasn't impacted. Now, there are some extra training things that we are going to do. There's some things obviously that we haven't worked on. We haven't done this. So it's kind of like, well, we got to get there. So we are going to provide some extra training opportunities in the spring for not only the fire folks, but also the EMS folks. So we can have an ambulance, for example, which we've had before through the ambulance on the private side, on the corporation side, be deployed to Elk City for a week. We rotated people out. So that's the other benefit that we have is that, let's just say they need that engine for a week or an ambulance for a week. Well, Maureen, you can only go on Monday and Ann can go on Tuesday. So we just shuttle people around, and Art can go for the last 3 days. Well, we can shuttle people in and out of here to make sure that we can cover that still. So we have that opportunity, which is kind of nice because we do have people that, hey, I'm off on this day, or I can't do this day, but I can do it tomorrow or whatever. So that's the good thing, and we've made it work so far on other things that we've done, and it's just kind of cool to get it to work. And they understand too that, okay, if we're going to be there for 2 days, then that's all you're going to get. So, and they just call other resources. It's just they just keep going down the list. But they try to stick with the locals first, or the closest first, and then kind of go out from there. So.
Yep, well, for me, I think it makes good sense to be able to at least recover some costs associated with the wear and tear and use of the equipment, if nothing else, and certainly would help the department's finances from that point of view. So I'm in favor of having this codified with this agreement.
I think the city's, if I remember, is a little over $2,000 that we collected for I think it was 17 hours deployment between myself and the engine. So, so that's how much we were reimbursed for that. And you're right, Art. It's a lot of it's maintenance and stuff like that. So.
I'm thinking consent agenda for this. Does that seem appropriate?
I think it is. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Any motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Let's
So
go.
moved.
Thanks, everyone. See
Hey,
you soon.
thanks.
Have a good night.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.